In studio with, I was going to say the Admiral, Bill Stubblefield, but, the Admiral's not here today. He's got some stuff he's got to take care of. So New York Times bestselling author John Gilstrap is in his place. Good morning, John. Maria Lawrenson is back. Good to see you.
Good morning. Always happy to be here. And it's fun. I mentioned to John earlier in the week, we've seen each other a lot, that I don't think that we've ever co-hosted together, have we?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So this is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to have the two of you together.
Absolutely.
Chef Eric and playing us back in here. We used to do a Christmas Eve concert that we would do on Christmas Eve every year on the show. We did it at Patterson's for a little while. We did it in studio, and Chef Eric was the head of the band there, and that was a recording of God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen live on location at Patterson's drugstore several years ago when we did that, and that was our bumper music coming back into the program.
Very cool.
The band kind of split up a little bit and kind of went their own ways on things, and then we don't do that anymore, but it was fun when we did it, I have to say. Program notes here, pass along. Monday will be the last live show, and then we're off Christmas Eve until after New Year's Day. So we will be out December 24 onward, and then back on January 2. That's a Thursday. I will not be back January 2. I will be back on January 6. Mike Hornby will host the show for me January 2 and January 3. I return January 6, if you're keeping score at home.
So I'm on vacation then for 2 weeks. My Wednesdays are not here. I'm free.
Well, those would be Christmas Day and New Year's Day.
It would be Christmas Day and New Year's Day.
You probably wouldn't come in if I was here doing the show.
Yeah, not yeah.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Our guest in this segment is Commissioner in Jefferson County, Pasha Majdi. Good morning, Pasha. How are you?
Good morning and Merry Christmas.
To you as well, sir. Pasha, do you do Majdi or Majdi as the pronunciation?
I do Majdi.
Majdi, all right. Well, I've been calling you Majdi for 2 years. You should have corrected me.
Right, I'm not much of a stickler.
People do that with me because it's either Mario or Mario to people, and I'm good either way. It really doesn't matter. How about you, Maria? Does anybody mess up your name?
Yeah. I mean, Lorenzen sometimes.
Yeah.
And when we first moved here, Ralph Lorenzetti was the prosecutor in Jefferson County. So they were like, "Are you related?" We're like, "It's not the same name, so no." But if you're listening, Ralph, it's always nice to be in that category with you.
That's funny. Pasha, you are right after the election. You took the office because you were already there, correct?
That's right.
So are you technically referred to by a different district now, or does that not happen until January?
I think that happened already. No, that happened already. It's hard to tell when you're sitting up there. It's very important in election season,
right?
Because you have to reside in a specific area known as a magisterial district. But functionally on the commission, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. So it's hard to tell when you're sitting up on the dais. But I think that's taken effect already. So I'm the commissioner from Harpers Ferry.
Harpers Ferry,
my home district.
Very good. Do you know what is the latest in Harpers Ferry and the big development that's going on there with the inn?
Well, I'm incredibly excited about it. I would count that as one of our key accomplishments this year, moving that forward as a commission with the TIF district. I don't know what the latest is in terms of construction, but I believe the permits have been handed out and approved. So I think it's up to the private sector to act.
Is the TIF completed? Is that voting all done and in place, and they're all good to break ground and start moving things?
Yes, we finished that this year. There were additional steps in terms of building permits. I don't get involved with that. Those are non-political decisions, and rightfully so. So I don't get involved with that. But my understanding is that's already been approved.
Oh, well, that's great.
Boy, that project has been, I can remember those folks coming to Rotary. It feels like 2 or 3 years ago and saying, we're on the cusp. We are on the cusp.
And it's been about 20 years since they started the thought of it, right?
Just can't imagine
Karen and Fred Schoenfeld.
Yes, for that period of time. And it was interesting. You and I had weddings this past year, and my daughter was looking at, she was like, do you think that would be a venue? And I'm like, oh, honey, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to.
Not yet. But it'll be a heck of a venue.
It will be beautiful, but, fingers crossed that happens.
Pasha, have there been any economic impact studies of what the completion of that project will mean to West Virginia and Harpers Ferry?
It'll be terrific for local jobs and revenue. There have been studies. I haven't looked at them in months because this is something we acted on this past summer. But it's going to be definitely one of the biggest developments in the entire county. It'll drive jobs and economic growth. When I was doing my research on this, the first thing I wanted to know is, for all the local bed and breakfast owners, hoteliers, short-term rental owners, how would this affect your business? And I was surprised because I'm not in the industry. For someone in the industry, it's probably obvious. I'm not into the industry. I'm just doing my research. I asked around, and it was unanimous. Everybody said, well, this is going to be terrific for our business. I was a little bit surprised. I thought, okay, well, isn't this a competitor? They said, no. This is going to, rising tide lifts all boats. This is going to help the economic growth and development of the town. It's definitely a good thing. So I was relieved to hear that when I was looking into it. And when I looked at the TIF, I saw that, we'd have public infrastructure being paid for via projected tax revenue that comes with the development, because you got to recategorize, and when you recategorize, the tax revenue increases. You use that tax revenue for infrastructure that benefits the public. It's a win-win.
Well, whenever the Hilltop House is finished, we'll all be looking forward to visiting that. That's going to be a tremendous renovation when they reconstruct all that. I don't know how much you're able to speak of the proposed plant in Middleway with water bottling and such. We had an opportunity to speak with a gentleman from Sidewinder yesterday who I thought gave out a lot of very good information. Pasha, and I know the meeting yesterday was canceled. Do you know why the meeting was canceled and when it will be rescheduled to?
I can't speak to that. The most I know is really from listening to your show, so I think they're looking at February. But my understanding is that there's some sort of active lawsuit going on, so that kind of ties my hands. I'm not really able to talk about that very much right now while there's pending or active litigation.
Do you know who filed the lawsuit?
No.
Do you know what the lawsuit is about?
I think it's about timing and process.
Timing and process. All right. Well, I want to find out more about that. That would be interesting. And I assume at this point you can't say anything because of the lawsuit about that project in Middleway.
No, and even if there weren't a lawsuit, I'd probably give a pretty similar answer, because the commission, I'm not on the planning commission, I'm on the county commission. They both have the word commission in it. It's a little bit confusing, but the county commission does not have an application right now. There's no application for me to look at.
Right.
So, I've gotten comments from a lot of folks around town. Hey, what do you think about this application? I said, well, I don't have one. So there's not really much for me to say. If there were to be an application that comes to the county commission, then I'll have an opinion. But there's no active application right now. So mum's the word for me. And
regardless of the lawsuit, what was the process of this getting through the planning commission before you would see an application? How does that work?
Well, because I hate to be a pain, but because the lawsuit's about process itself, I probably shouldn't answer that. But basically, there's decision making at the planning commission level, not at the county commission level. And there's been a lot of talk about transparency over the past year. I think a key component of transparency is not forming an opinion until you actually receive an application. We don't have one, so it's really for the planning commissioners to speak to right now.
So, morning, Pasha. This is John Gilstrap. Merry Christmas.
Morning.
So, in terms of process, let's say I wanted to build a factory to make Gilstrap widgets. The process itself, would it normally involve the county commission, or would it normally just involve the planning commission?
Yeah, generally speaking, there are ministerial functions of the government where there are boards. For example, it could be the planning commission, or it could be the board of zoning appeals, that simply adjudicate whether or not you have met the terms of an ordinance. The ordinance says you must do X, Y, and Z. Let's have a factual finding. Did you do X, Y, and Z? Those are not political decisions. We want them to not be political decisions. So we have boards that are apolitical that are designed to handle those. Sometimes it's the Planning Commission, sometimes the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So if my hypothetical plan passes that muster, am I done? Or does it ultimately come to the county commission for approval or denial as a matter of just general course of business?
It depends, but usually you're done. If it's just meeting the requirements of an ordinance. That's why I've been saying over the past year, when it comes to solar, when it comes to the comp plan, folks, the most important thing is how do you write your ordinances? That's what I'm most interested in. Those are political decisions, and those are decisions that commissioners have to make. And commissioners made those decisions on the solar text amendment before I joined the commission, and we have those repercussions. So to me, it's the design of the ordinance that's really key. And of course, the planning commissioners have expertise there, but that's where the political accountability comes. How did you write the rules? It's kind of like writing the rules for a sport versus refereeing a game. If you're acting as a planning commission level or Board of Zoning Appeals and you have an application, you're just a ref. You're calling the game as you see it.
Pasha, is the lawsuit against the commission or against the company? Do you have any idea on that?
I believe it's against the county government, so that's why I have to
county government
say mum on that.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that would make sense.
So I guess my question is, Pasha, then the will of the people, so to speak. Like I'm going back, I'm going to date myself a few years here with the whole Rockwool situation and other places and of course solar panels. You have what appears to be a very loud outcry from the public, and then it seems like not that you're not taking that into consideration, but if the process is followed, are you saying it's really out of our hands? So Rockwool gets approved, all of these other things. If a company follows the steps, whether or not the community is embracing it or not, does it make any difference?
Right. You have to follow the rules that are in place. The setting of the rules is when you implement the will of the people, and that's where you have political accountability, whether it's the governor, a delegate, or a commissioner. It's the setting of the rules. Once you have the rules in place, you have to enforce them. And you can't say, well, you might have played by the rules, but I'm going to call you out of bounds even though you didn't step out of bounds because I'm rooting for the other team, right? That's not how it works. That would be unfair.
Well, it's entirely fair to say, whoa, we didn't foresee that part, right? I mean, you can always, laws can be changed in midstream, right?
Depends on what you mean by mid. Laws can certainly be changed, and I think in most cases they would have to apply for further applications. When you look at solar, I've said, look, I don't like the laws that are currently written. We need to change the ordinance, and that would apply to further applications. But if you've already submitted an application, that's a different circumstance.
I have some notes on the ruling of Judge Hammer at the conclusion of yesterday's hearing that granted this injunction. It says it is the consideration, actually on the 16th of December at 10:30 a.m., it is the consideration of this court to grant a preliminary injunction, likelihood of irreparable harm to Mr. Hewitt. He is in a different position than when the initial application was submitted. This is, I hesitate to use the term, a major revision with the addition of additional properties. I see no harm to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission has not taken a position on this question of the meeting schedule. It is solely on action of the staff. The plaintiff is likely to prevail on the claim of due process violation. I reject the claim that the 45 days is solely for the benefit of the staff and Planning Commission. Other agencies and the public have the same rights to comment. The public interest weighs in favor of granting the injunction. The zoning ordinance balances the public and landowner interests. The injunction is granted. The applicant is instructed to send notices of the revised plan to the relevant agencies. The meeting is set for February 11. No bond is required since the Planning Commission is a public agency. Plaintiff counsel is directed to draft this order as stated for review by respondents' counsel and submit to the court for filing.
What is the injunction to What is blocked by the injunction? The hearing?
Pasha, do you know?
So I have no idea what any of that means. One of our highest paid employees is our counsel,
That's
and
his job.
that's why we pay him the big bucks to read that, understand it, and reply. And it would be irresponsible of me to weigh in on the air.
And it says it will be a few days before this is notes I'm getting, a few days before the official ruling is entered into the online court docket type. Plaintiff's counsel was then assigned the task of drafting the final order. Then it goes to somebody for review, then to the judge for final entry. So whatever is blocked, maybe it was the meeting being blocked, moving forward with the project, whatever. And Pasha, I'm kind of cutting you out of all that. This is a discussion between us, the audience, and our co-hosts here. I know as a commissioner, you're not allowed to comment or be involved in any of all of that. I understand that and don't want to put you in jeopardy. So anyway, moving on from that, because that's as far as I can take that with any reasonable background or intelligence. In regards to Jefferson County, a year ago when you were appointed to the council, Pasha, the Jefferson County financial situation was entirely different. The whole structure of the commission was entirely different, and there was a lot of dissatisfaction in the community with the Jefferson County Commission. A year later, how do you summarize the current status of the commission?
It's been quite a year. We started by hiring a county administrator. She's brought stability and accountability. We did not have a CEO of the county, and it showed. We then we passed a balanced budget. We passed a balanced budget, which was not easy this year. There were some questions about where money was being tracked, how it was being tracked. We did not have a CFO, so we also hired a CFO this year. While we passed a balanced budget, we removed table revenue from our operating budget, which I think is one of those behind-the-scenes accomplishments where you can say, hey, this is good governance. I don't really know if you can take that on the campaign trail. But
what is table revenue?
We're talking about taxes paid on income from the casino, and it's a sector that's a little bit volatile. So when you have it in your operating budget, it goes up, it goes down. That can affect the governance of the county if it's a little bit too volatile. So moving it from operating budget to elsewhere stabilizes the operating budget from year to year. So that was an accomplishment. The most important thing we did financially was the remand of the solar tax amendment to the Planning Commission. We were facing $50 to $100 million in legal liability for actions by former Commissioners Jackson and Kraus in September of 23. So, $50 to $100 million, that's triple our annual budget for the entire county. On a per citizen basis, what is that, $1,000 a head? Mm-hmm. So family of four, $4,000 fine for every person, every family that lives in the county due to tomfoolery at the commission. That was real. That was a real risk. And the people who claim it was not a real risk are the same people who keep losing in court. So, I wouldn't go to them for legal advice. I didn't at the time, and that's why and how we saved the county financially. Beyond finances, on growth, I mentioned the solar rewrite. We approved the Hilltop Hotel. We talked about that. We increased government efficiency by consolidating into one building. That'll be executed next year, but the decision was made, and we'll see if we can actually finalize that after we do our due diligence, which will take a few months. But the best part about that, in my opinion, is not even the building itself. It's what it means for the long-term future of Charlestown, because we're revitalizing downtown Charlestown with this move. We've increased downtown Charlestown, historic downtown Charlestown, 50% by taking the government out and bringing private sector in. What exactly that means, how it will look, that will be decided in the long term. But this decision is going to have a huge impact on growth for downtown Charleston, which everybody wants. And then just recently, we fixed the impact fees, which were too low. So developers will be paying their fair share. And the impact fees will help pay for our public safety center, which we announced a few months ago, and the new government building I just talked about.
Impact fees on schools.
It's been an active year.
It has been. You got a lot accomplished. And impact fees for schools were reduced to $1 some time ago, and I never really understood why. But has been the restoration of those fees to what level, Pasha?
It is now 6,772 for an increase of, I'm not a mathematician, but I think that's 6,771.
and that is only on the construction of new homes, correct?
Right.
Okay. And is it limited to any particular part of the county, or is that county-wide?
No, that's countywide. There's a differentiation between single family and multifamily, so the numbers are a little bit different for multifamily. But I think most people are interested in single family. It'll be up to 6,771. Excuse me, 6,772.
6,772. And when does that kick in? January 1?
Well, that was a bit of a debate. Our staff recommended March. We settled on June. Commissioner Stolper was not happy with the March implementation date, and it kind of looked like it was going to be either a 3-2 or a 4-1. So I stepped in and said, well, how do we get this to 5-0? And we compromised and settled on June 30th or July 1, or was it June 1? But basically, it'll be either June or July, and that delay got us to. It'll be June 1.
Unanimous.
That delay got us to a 5-0 vote, which I'm proud of.
Pasha, thanks for your time this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.